Okay, so the last thing I'd like to do is to touch on the GPU pass-through stuff a little bit more. So we're not going to actually do GPU pass-through in this video because I tried to learn the steps for it. It is very technically demanding. I don't have any hope for possibly doing this on camera, especially without doing it a few times myself first. I've never done it before. I don't expect myself to be able to just do it on the spot, having never done it before, and don't have the steps quite memorized yet either. I mean, I've installed Gen 2 for the first time on camera, completely from memory, but I think the GPU pass-through is going to be a lot harder. I would definitely have an easier time doing Gen 2 completely from memory for the second time ever without referencing any guides or anything. Anyway, so just to remind you, one of the reasons I wanted to do GPU pass-through in the first place is so that I could do basically Windows XP on my current graphics card. So if I try to boot Windows XP raw, it won't let me do that. Even if I set the mode to IDE for the hard drive and stuff like that, it won't properly boot Windows XP for whatever reason on my current hardware. I would like to see my graphics card on there because I'm used to Windows XP having a crappy graphics card like the API Express Radeon 200 series. But I've tried GPU pass-through on all sorts of virtualization platforms like XCP&G, Proxmox, Unraid. I've tried all sorts of stuff like that, and it doesn't work super great for Windows XP because there's basically two different chipset modes. You either have i440FX or Q35. You need the Q35 to do GPU pass-through, but that requires UEFI, and Windows XP doesn't really support that. Pretty much all those virtualization platforms I just shared and have tried, including VMware, I think, they do not. They have just those modes, and I couldn't find a nice middle ground that works with Windows XP but also does GPU pass-through. But I'm hoping that QEMU has a couple more options that may let me do it. Like, I think there's probably some in-between modes that works with Windows XP and also works with GPU pass-through. I just kind of want to look into those options for now. I don't expect to get very far with this, but let's see what we can do. So I'm gonna come into here. Actually, we'll just launch Virt Manager and see if we have any options for that. We can probably create a Windows XP option. So actually I will need a terminal because I need to access the media for it. I have a Windows XP disk that I've never used before. I just made an ISO of it, so hopefully we'll be able to use it in a VM. So what I want is SDH1. So let's mount dev SDH1 to MNT, and then we'll be able to access files on there. Actually, can I do it without sudo? Then everything will get proper permissions, including Virt Manager. Man, come on. You do need sudo, unfortunately. So I think that means I will have to relaunch Virt Manager and all that. Actually, I'll just copy the Windows XP disk to my home directory. That way permissions are not a problem. So I'll do CP, MNT, Windows XP. This is a 64-bit edition, which hopefully that won't have any compatibility issues with what I'm trying to do. Because I am going to test out a game basically that requires a graphics card, of course. So let's try to copy it to that home directory. And then what are the permissions for that? That should give us proper permissions, hopefully. So let's create a new virtual machine and see if we can at least find a nice middle ground. So I'll use local media. So I should find it in here. The list isn't repopulating itself, so I might need to relaunch Virtual Machine Manager. I'm not sure if that's going to make any difference. Oh, there we go. So Windows XP is now there. So I'll just choose that. It automatically detected what I wanted. I'll probably do like 2 gigs, which is quite a lot for Windows XP. I'll do 40 gigs maybe. That might be a bit overkill for what I'm doing. So we obviously want to look at options like the GPU pass-through, and then... Oh, I thought there was going to be a bunch of in-between chipsets. I actually saw a video not too long ago where someone managed to boot Windows XP on UEFI. I'll maybe link a resource in the description if I find that. But yeah, pretty interesting. That might even be an option worth considering, but it seems like a lot of messing around for what I'm trying to do. So unfortunately, I thought we were going to get a lot more options in this. Like, I thought there was like an i440 whatever. You know, what happens if we create a VM? What happens if we try to recreate the VM and then not do a like an automatic selection? You must select an OS. I'm just gonna do that, and then maybe I'll get some more options. And actually, I can do more than 2 gigs of RAM because this is actually Windows XP 64-bit, which I think will support more RAM. Okay, we still have the exact same options, unfortunately. I don't think we're really going to be able to do much. I would be curious to see what happens if I select Q35 just in this context. So this will be IDE because we need that for Windows XP, of course. I would be curious to see if I can get it working on Q35, because if I can, that will mean GPU pass-through is possible. If I select BIOS rather than UEFI, I don't know if that would even work. Q35 is what matters, because I don't think there's... Why don't we select the correct type real quick? This is what I meant when I said that, by the way. Okay, so setting the topology to make sure there's not more than one socket. Kind of weird that they would assume that's the case. Hopefully IDE will work right here. Yeah, now it does. So let's move this to a different workspace. So we have a fuller screen. Wait, did we actually select Q35? Oh, come on. It's doing the i440. Yeah, this is why it won't work. Because IDE requires that i440 and doesn't work with Q35. And Windows XP requires IDE, so we might not really have any options for that actually. It isn't whether it's BIOS or UEFI now that I think about it. It's whether we need IDE or not. There might be like a customized version where you can use SATA. I think later versions of Windows XP have SATA support. But that does sound like a lot of tinkering around. I may not end up following up on this. We'll just have to see how it goes. If I do happen to figure out anything with that, then I guess I'll let you know.